Pranakasha livestream.
Hey folks, it's Matt at Pranakasha Productions, and today we are talking with none other than Andy Weir, the author of The Martian. See, it says right there, The Martian, Andy Weir, and at the bottom it says novel. And that doesn't mean that Andy Weir is a Martian or a novel. It means that Andy Weir wrote it. And if for some strange reason anyone here has not read The Martian, there also was a movie with Matt Damon. And I'll tell you what we're going to do. If for some even stranger reason you never saw that movie, I'm going to show you the clip right now.
This will come as quite a shock to my crewmates, and to NASA, and to the entire world. But I'm still alive. Surprise. Here's the rub. It's gonna be 4 years for another mission to reach me. And I'm gonna have designed to last 31 days. So I gotta make water and grow food on a planet where nothing grows. But if I can't figure out a way to make contact with NASA, then none of this matters anyway.
We've got an incoming message.
Mein Gott. Mark Watney's still alive.
Woo! In your face, Neil Armstrong.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
Okay, so let's do the math. I have enough food to last for 50 days.
He's going to starve to death long before we can help.
So I'm gonna have to science the shit out of this.
He's 50 million miles away from home. He's totally alone. What the hell is he thinking right now?
I am the greatest botanist on this planet.
I know how to save Mark Watney.
But we need the Hermes crew.
We either have a high chance of killing one or a low chance of killing 6.
I'm not risking their lives. It's bigger than one person.
No, it's not.
NASA rejected the mission.
So if we do this,
We're talking mutiny. If anything goes wrong, we die.
do you realize how crazy this is? We had no other option.
No matter what happens, tell the world, tell my family that I never stop fighting to make it home.
Okay, so it was an amazing book. I, like many people, I heard about it on the internet. That this book, that it started out as a blog, right?
Well, I wouldn't call it a blog. It was a short story. It was a serial, a serial that I was posting to my website, a chapter at a time.
Okay.
I'd post a chapter maybe every 6 to 8 weeks. I was also working on other serials at the same time.
Oh,
So think of
okay.
it kind of like the 19th century when, you know, like Sherlock Holmes was originally in serial format in the Strand magazine. You didn't get to read the whole book at once. You got like one chapter at a time.
And it was really starting to take off. Okay, so now I assume since you were publishing it as a serial, you're actually creating it as a serial too, right?
Yeah, I was. And I warned all of my, well, I didn't have a lot of readers. Back then I had a regular, like an email list of about 3,000 people who were regular readers, which sounds like a lot.
Yeah, that's pretty
But
good.
it took me 10 years to accumulate a list that big.
Okay.
So that's an average of one new reader per day. I mean, it's good, but it's not like, OMG, so clever, so amazing. But
Right.
anyway, I had 3,000, 3,500 regular readers. And I warned them all, okay, guys, you're basically watching me write a book. So I'm posting the chapters one at a time, but I reserve the right to go back and change things if I want. Yeah, like these are not instant, immutable canon You know, so if I go like, oh, I messed something up, I might go back and edit the chapters, and if I do, I'll let you know. And I did frequently, and when I made changes, I would just send an email out to my email list and say like, hey guys, I edited chapter 2. Here's a summary of the things I changed. Because it drills down to my computer programmer roots. Basically, they're release notes.
Yeah. Now, did you get any blowback when you did edit stuff?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Oftentimes, the reason I edited stuff was because my readers would point out like errors that I'd made. Because of course, these readers, these are hardcore nerds, right?
Yeah.
These are big time dorks who not only love to see me do the math, but they like to double check it.
Oh, like Andy, the delta V was off by 10%, you idiot.
Hey, I came into it claiming that I was being scientifically accurate. So I don't get to complain if I make a mistake and people point it out, right?
Except for one major caveat that the atmosphere of Mars is 100 times thinner than the Earth, and that has a major effect on the opening plot point.
Right, exactly. And that one is just an intentional looking the other way at physics. I did have a scenario.
It's kind of like in The Expanse where they spin up an asteroid and it magically doesn't fly apart. I don't know if you watch that show.
Oh, of course I watched that show. Yeah. I hadn't thought of that. I don't know what the Roche limit or whatever you'd call it. I guess it's not a Roche limit. A Roche limit is something orbiting another body. Well, I don't know what.
See, the thing is that I think it was Eros. They spun it up to create artificial gravity, right?
Oh, it's been a while. I'm sorry.
So if they spin it up to create artificial gravity, then all the rocks are going to fly out into space because they basically, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, I'm sorry.
The whole thing would fly apart.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just it'd be very dusty.
Well, the dust would fly out too. Yeah. So, but we let that go because
we'll let it go.
Similarly, The Expanse has great scientific rigor. They
It's
probably
awesome.
copied you.
No. They're just awesome in their own right. No, I've met the two guys that are James S.A. Corey, and they're awesome. We always run into each other at Comic-Con or whatever. We don't have any events together or anything, but we always end up together at the same after hours party somewhere. And then we just hang out and be nerds.
Ooh, you're familiar with this always happens on my show and we just double back. I immediately derail my guests in some wild tangent. We're already way off the subject, but have you ever been to or heard of Star Trek Las Vegas?
No. No. I don't think so.
I assume you're a Trekkie, right?
Of course.
Okay. Yeah. So
I have a heart, don't I?
Yeah, you do. And at some point, you will need to write a book that includes warp drive of some sort, or proto warp drive.
I don't know. FTL is a bit much for me. But I've had some ideas for how I could do faster than light stuff, but I've got some ideas. Anyway,
we got our dear Alcubierre. He figured it all out. All we need is the entire energy of the whole universe to make it work.
Yeah, that's all you need.
Yeah, we solved that and we're good.
We're good.
And we also need negative energy.
So we're talking about, So we're talking about Star Trek Las Vegas. What is it?
Yeah. So it's like one of the main Star Trek conventions.
Oh, okay.
No, but now their license has changed, so it doesn't have to be all Star Trek. So you could get a table, an Andy Weir table, in the room, sign autographs and sign books.
I'm sure I could. They'd probably be willing to do that as long as as long as they're not. If they're strictly Star Trek focused, then they wouldn't be interested in me, right?
Because they allowed
despite
orbital people this year now.
Oh, when is it?
It's August 3 through the 6th. And I happen to know that a vendor table costs about $700.
Oh, I'm not thinking of going there to sign autographs. I'm thinking of just going there to be a fanboy.
Well, you could certainly sign autographs.
Well, maybe. Orville. I love Orville. It's the best new Trek show that there is.
Yes.
much to my surprise, Picard season 3 is pretty good.
Well, I haven't seen episode 2 yet, so no spoilers.
Okay.
I saw episode 1 and I really liked it.
I think it's like they changed everything. It's like they said, "Oh, let's stop doing all the stupid, boring crap, and let's do neat stuff instead."
I like that.
Yeah, I actually pitched a Star Trek show. I ended up. I told my agent, I'm like, "Hey, I got an idea for a Star Trek show. They seem to be making a bunch. I wonder if I could pitch one." And he said, "I'll put you in touch with the right people." Next thing I know, I'm on a Zoom call with Kurtzman and the showrunners of every show. So there's Kurtzman, and then the showrunner of Strange New Worlds, the showrunner of Picard, the showrunner of Discovery, and the showrunner of Lower Decks.
Oh, cool!
And I'm like, well, I gotta say, I'm pretty thrilled to be here. And I pitched my show, and they said no. But well, it turns out my idea.
Shot it down?
Well, not that simply. It turns out that my idea, there were some aspects of it that they were already planning to do for in some of their shows, and I'm like, all right, well, you already got that in mind. And
well, remember that little ditty that you wrote a long time ago called "The Egg"?
I do remember that long forgotten tale.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of Star Trek-y. You know?
Yeah, you know what it sounds like? It sounds like the religion of an alien race somewhere in Star Trek, but not actually true within the Star Trek universe. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So
it sounds like there's like some ovoids on some planet somewhere, and they worship, the egg,
the giant egg of eternity.
Yes,
mm-hmm.
We are all one. Yeah.
Well, okay. So now that we're talking about the egg. I promise we'll get back to The Martian and also all your other stuff. Especially, we have to talk about your new book too.
Project Hail Mary.
Yeah, we got to get there too. But now for the egg, did that come completely out of the blue, or did you base that on some? Because I mean, I can tell you right off the bat, it fits right in with the Upanishads and that kind of Buddhist philosophy and Hindu philosophy and so on. Did you base it on that, or did it just come straight out of your subconscious?
I mean, I didn't explicitly base it on any real religion, but of course, I've grown up in this world and been influenced by, or just am aware of many religions. So I'm sure that influences my storytelling, especially if I'm going to write a story about God, right? Mm-hmm. But really, what I was trying to do was I sat down one day and I thought, wouldn't it be cool if life really was fair? So how do I set up an eternity? How do you get punished for sins in the afterlife, or how do you get rewarded for doing good deeds? And how do you make sure that is 100% guaranteed to be fair? Okay, so you murdered someone, so you get thrown into a lake of burning lava or something for 1,000 years. Is that the right punishment? I don't know, but being the guy who gets murdered is a pretty good punishment, right? Yeah. So I thought okay. So when you die, initially I thought, okay, when you die, then I'll say that God makes you experience all the things that you did to other people. Okay. So he makes you experience, this time in third grade when you punched a kid, or he makes you experience and when you were 12 years old and you called that girl fat and made her feel bad. You have to experience that, and so on. And I was like, but wait a minute. Okay, so what if you're the president of the United States and you order this city to be bombed in the middle of a war, right? You don't it's the bomber pilots that do the bombing, not you, or the bombardiers that do the bombing, not you. So what is your punishment? Or what if 1,000 people get together and do something bad? How do you divide up the punishment? And so on. And so I finally thought okay, the only way for it to be completely fair is for everyone to experience everything. And then that kind of led me on the road to be okay, there's only one person and that individual experiences everything. And then I needed a conclusion. So I'm okay. And when you're done, you get born in your God's species, which seemed very symmetrical. I don't know.
I think it was it Penrose? Who was the physicist that came up with the idea that there's only one electron in the entire universe?
The one electron universe? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard of that. I don't know who
that's
came up with
similar.
it.
Yeah.
It is a bit similar, except for
Yeah.
instead of an electron, it's a soul.
But who's to say that electrons don't have souls?
Me, I say it. I don't know.
All right. So we've already gone all the way around and back. So we
We've
may as
gone
well talk
around.
about the James Webb Telescope for a sec.
All right,
So-
cool. Talk about it.
So actually, well, let's throw in something else. So you've also heard of the idea that we're all living in a simulation, right?
Yeah, I have my own thoughts on that.
Okay.
Basically, I find it mildly annoying because it's just kind of this weird. Basically, the simulation theory is just another religion, right?
Mhm.
You're saying
Yes.
there's a greater power that's running the universe and controlling it, and we live within the universe, right? Well, so that's no different than like Judaism. In the grand scheme of things, it just means that like if you want to call it a simulation instead of just, the universe that God created, you're just using different terminology. Really all you're doing is saying like, oh, okay, this is a new religion. And like any religion, you can't disprove it because there's always a thing. If I say like, oh, here's some proof that we're not in a simulation, but the simulation would account for that. It's the same as like, well, here's proof that there's no God. Well, you can't know that for sure because God might, whatever. So I guess my answer to that is, for people who think we live in a simulation, I say power to you. It deserves no more and no less respect than just being Catholic. So,
Well, it certainly solves the whole problem of the double slit experiment.
well, being Catholic could also solve that problem, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one thing I always do when I'm trying to explain quantum physics to somebody, I always say like, okay, the first thing you need to know is God's lazy. Like God is lazy and God cheats. He doesn't want to be working out where an electron is all the time. He just says like, all right, when it hits something, I'll let you know. Until then, it's everywhere and nowhere. It doesn't matter. And then you start poking at the edges, and God's like, fine, okay, well, if you're going to get all looking at shit on me, fine. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, they are entangled. And when you measure one, that's when the other one gets set. Hey, there you go.
Well,
what are you going to do about it? I'm God. Bite me.
That sounds awfully similar to the algorithms they use to save memory when you have a graphics card and it just
I thought that same
thing.
I thought that same thing. I was like, hey, this is like a lazy computer program or something. But if we really were living in a simulation and it was written to be that efficient, why would the simulation need so much universe surrounding it? Couldn't you just have
a little bit? Is we don't know that. We don't know if that stuff was there. Like maybe it only shows up when the James Webb Telescope decides to look at the little patch of sky for a week.
Hey, maybe. But I would say just we live in a universe. There might be other things outside of it we don't understand, but we live in this one. So either it's a simulation or it isn't, or God's out there and Jesus is out there, or Allah's out there, or Muhammad's out there, whatever. It doesn't matter. This is the world we live in. Make the best of it.
Right. And it has certain physical laws that seem to
be very consistently applied. Yeah.
Yeah, thankfully. Okay, let's go there now. So what's your take on the physicists that they realize that, whoa, in order for this universe to exist in the form that it is, where we have atoms that can form molecules, and molecules that can clump into dust, and dust that can form into suns, and suns that can create fusion, and planets that can orbit around. In order for all that to happen, there is an extremely delicate balance of all the forces of the universe that have to be just right for that to work.
Well, then you get into the anthropic principle.
Okay.
In other words, if that didn't happen, we wouldn't be here to observe how unlikely it is. Right?
But when they do the math, it's like billions and trillions against that. The universe that we're in is so incredibly unique.
Well, if you do the math on all the permutations of children your parents could have had with their DNA, every possible combination of their zygotes, you are one of those quadrillions or quintillions of possible human beings that could have been created by your parents. And if you just look at yourself and go like, wow, everything had to be perfectly balanced, a 1 in a gajillion, million, zillion chance for this to happen. I mean, well, yeah.
Okay, but
I mean, that'd be something.
But in that case, if you didn't come up to that, you'd have another human being that looked a little different, but it still worked as a human being.
Well, maybe there's another universe that is unfathomable to us, but works just fine as a universe.
Well,
So it's a universe that doesn't have any hydrogen.
Here's what
It's
I
like
heard.
it's just empty.
Yeah. Well, what I heard is that most universes. Let's say that there's one theory that there's just jillions of universes, and we happen to live in the one that does work to support life. But all the other ones, almost all the vast majority of the other ones, would just be like plasma for the entire time. You know, it would never turn into anything useful, or it could just be dust that never clumps together.
But again, I want you to imagine that like that's our interpretation of what could have been. But who knows? Okay. Like these other these other potential, like analyzing things that didn't happen but could have happened. I guarantee you there's always going to be more things that could have happened than things that did happen. So any of those universes could have happened, but this is the one that did.
Okay.
So, and if you believe there are multiple universes, well, I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson who said, like, I don't know if it was him or if it was someone else, but who said, like, the universe really only has 3 numbers. There's 0, 1, and infinity. Like, so basically, something either doesn't exist at all, or there's precisely one of them, or there's functionally infinite of them.
Okay. Which is so there's people are talking.
There's one me.
Okay.
There's one universe. There's one me. There was one Big Bang.
Okay.
There are functionally infinite hydrogens. It's one of those things like, you know, in quantum physics to say, if it is possible, it is mandatory. Like basically, if you can take any particle interaction and say, what if these are the incoming particles and then these are the outgoing particles, and they're different, but their masses and kinetic energies and momenta all balance out. Okay. Then they say that must happen sometimes.
Okay, because we have an infinite universe. And I guess I remember back in the 80s, at least in the 80s and 90s, when I was in college and stuff, back then they were kind of talking about our universe is big, but it's still finite.
Well, I mean, it is for our purposes. It is finite. Well, it's finite because like the Big Bang happened
of space,
right? But also for us, there is a functional limit in that since the universe is constantly expanding,
right?
And it's expanding like blowing up a balloon, and so the further away you get, the faster that space is receding from us.
Correct.
And so there is a distance at which space is receding away from us at the speed of light.
And even faster than it, too.
Well, I mean, there is a point at which it's receding from us at c, and then anything beyond that, it would be receding faster than light. So that point where it's receding at c is we can never interact with any part of our universe beyond that point.
However,
unless you invent faster than light travel.
But there's a thing, though, that stuff beyond that edge can still affect us, and this is how.
I mean...
Hear me out, and I just read this. Right now, it appears to be that the curvature of our universe, the space-time curvature, is flat.
Mostly.
They used to think that it was either closed or open, right? But right now, it appears to be flat from what I read. But here's what I heard. So it may be that the curvature of space actually is curved, but it's that the universe is so big that the curvature appears to us flat. Because we're just
flat
a tiny little thing of this hugely gigantic universe that goes way beyond what we can see. So in that way,
we might come around the other direction.
It's affecting us in the way that, because we're affected by its effect on the curvature of space-time.
Interesting theory.
Yeah.
So in the future, will we have flat universers who are mocked and derided?
Yeah.
What was I going to say? On that, I have a random belief in terms of physics and cosmology that I have a belief.
Ooh.
I have no way to prove it.
Let's hear it.
And it's not unique. I'm not the first person to come up with this, but I suspect there is no such thing as dark matter.
So do I. I think dark matter is bullshit.
Yeah, I think it's just there is some physics we haven't figured out yet.
Mm-hmm. What I say is, look, what makes more sense? Come up with this imaginary invisible dark matter that nobody can detect. It's basically pixie dust, or just tweak the equations for curvature of gravity over large distances.
Right.
And I would say that the way gravity works in space-time curves over large distances is a little different than we expect. And that's much more reasonable than coming up with a bunch of imaginary dark matter.
That's my guess too. It's like, just as we learned that when you start looking at velocities that are way, way outside the normal human experience, you found out it didn't work the way we thought, right? We ran into relativity. And then we said, when we started looking at distances much, much smaller than the typical human experience, we found out that was a big old ugly can of whoop ass waiting for us down there in quantum theory, right? And so I'm wondering if we start looking at gravity over galactic distances, maybe there's a whole new set of physics at play that we don't understand because it's something that's negligible even at the interstellar size, even at the local stars size. It's kind of like,
totally with you. That's exactly that's the exact same conclusion that I came to. Yeah. Was it like, even when it comes to we know about relativity, but like the Apollo mission, no part of it had to account for it. Wait a sec.
Now GPS satellites didn't exist yet. So GPS satellites are the first time that we ran into a functional problem where we had to account for relativity.
Okay. How about that?
And so like the whole, we put human beings on the moon and like they knew about relativity, but they were just like, it doesn't affect us.
We'll just use our slide rules and
abacuses
and it'll work out fine.
Use Newtonian physics. That's all you need to know. It's amazing how much precision there is. Like, here's one of my favorite ones. So talking about pi, the number pi, people, I don't know, for whatever reason, people are like, oh, we found the quadrillionth, we now have pi down to a quadrillion decimal places or something absurd like that. I don't know what it's up to, but it's pretty high. People are using supercomputers to do this. Anyway, so, it's like, okay, so we know pi out to a gajillion decimal places. How far out do you really need to know pi? And this was a high school physics teacher who taught me this, and it stuck with me my whole life. He said, let's say you want to take the Milky Way galaxy, okay, and approximate it to a perfect circle, okay? So something the diameter, a 100,000 light year diameter circle, okay? Now, I want to put hydrogen atoms all along that circle, okay? And they're just going to sit edge to edge. They have their first electron shells. They have a known diameter. They're going to sit edge to edge going around that circle that encompasses the Milky Way, okay? And I want to calculate exactly how many hydrogen atoms would fit in that circle. Now, how many it would take to go around the whole circle. And I want my margin of error to be less than one hydrogen atom.
Okay.
So to do that, you're going to need a fairly accurate number for pi. You're going to need to know pi to many decimal places. Right. Guess how many decimal places?
I think it's less than 10.
No, it's more than that. It's about 40 though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but that's it. Okay. That's it. If you have 40 decimal places of pi, you can answer that question accurately.
Because I just heard some
When are we ever going to need the millionth decimal place of pi?
Because we just had Pi Day, didn't we?
No, that's coming up next month. That'll be March 14th.
Okay, because for some reason I heard this discussion And they were saying, maybe they said 50. They said to 50, then you could use it to calculate the ratio between the diameter and the circumference of the known universe all the way down to the Planck constant. The Planck
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Which is basically the smallest pixel in the simulation.
Yeah. Voxel. Let's be accurate.
Yeah, you got it, voxel. Okay, now
25 years of computer programming.
Back to the Martian. Okay.
Okay.
So it was a given that right off the bat, the problem with the wind is that if you have 200-mile-an-hour winds, but your atmosphere is 100 times less dense than the Earth's, then in effect, the kinetic energy in that wind is a 2-mile-an-hour wind on the Earth.
Yeah, if you folded a piece of paper, like a piece of printer paper along its long axis and then made it 90 degrees and set it on the ground at Mars, it would probably just stand up for an indefinite amount of time. The most brutal Martian windstorm would not knock it over.
Yeah, and so it's not quite enough to impale a radar antenna into.
Not at all. And I knew that was bullshit when I wrote it. Are you cool with swearing on your show? I guess.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, wait, actually. So what we have to do is, I'm cool with. Okay.
Okay.
No, he can swear.
Okay. It's your show, your rules, man.
Yeah. I am God. Yeah. I am the programmer of this simulation.
You are the programmer.
Yes.
So I knew it was bullshit when I wrote it, but I thought it wouldn't matter. I thought nobody cares. Nobody's going to check. Everybody checked. And also I'm kind of happy that so many people got educated about Mars by people always pointing out that one major flaw. And what's funny is I did have an alternate idea that would have been completely within the realm of physics. My idea was that they were going to be doing an MAV engine test and something malfunctions, it spirals out of control. And that's what's ultimately the cause of the failure, where they have to leave and they believe Mark is dead and they leave him behind and so on.
Okay.
But
to tell you the truth,
it's a person versus nature story, and I wanted nature to get the first punch.
Plus,
and I will just the epilogue to that is much later on.
Keep going.
Okay. The epilogue to that is much later on when I was touring NASA and everything, the film was out and everything like that. The people it was actually Jim Green, who was at the time head of planetary sciences and is now chief scientist for NASA. But he told me, "Oh, you wanted nature to get the first punch," because I told him that story. And he said, "Well, Mars has lightning." And I'm like, "I didn't know Mars had lightning. Lightning strike would have been excellent." Or it strikes something that in turn blows up or malfunctions or something. I'm sure I could have got there.
Okay, I can tell you why The Martian became such a runaway hit.
That's The Martian.
Because either knowingly or unknowingly, you reach deep into the psyche, into the ethos, into the zeitgeist of Earthlings.
Well, it was sort of intentional.
Way before The Martian, we had this.
Marvin the Martian. I'm going to blow up your world. I know. He had the ammonium P38 space modulator. Is that what it was? Something like that.
You will not like me when I'm angry.
Don't make me angry. You wouldn't like it when I'm angry.
Oh, that's so much better than mine.
Thank you. I do voices sometimes.
Okay, but then not only that, it was a double whammy because when you picked that windstorm, you of course evoked the greatest movie of all time, which was this.
Also, I hadn't thought of that, but yeah.
The scariest
to be fair,
thing.
Dorothy was taken elsewhere and Mark was abandoned somewhere, but
that was the natural event that catapulted the entire story. That's
true. It is very much true. And I later wrote a story featuring her.
Oh, I got to read that one.
There's a graphic novel. I wrote it, and it was drawn by Sarah Anderson. And cool. It's called Cheshire Crossing. And it's about Dorothy Gale from The Wizard of Oz, Alice Liddell from Alice in Wonderland, and Wendy
from Peter Pan.
from Peter Pan. And why am I forgetting her last name? I know her last name, but I've lost it. Anyway, Wendy from Peter Pan. And the three of them are all brought to an institute to be studied, why they're able to go from, pass into other parallel dimensions.
Well, you forgot about A Wrinkle in Time.
I didn't. I just used those three because they're all like, everybody knows about those. Not everybody knows the characters of A Wrinkle in Time, but everybody immediately knows. True. Wendy Darling.
Wendy Darling, yeah.
Yeah.
Plus 3 is a divine number. Everyone knows that.
Sure, yeah.
If
they end up
3, we wouldn't have triangles.
Yeah, and where would we be then? We'd be flatlanders, kind of. But yeah, I mean, they end up going into each other's worlds and having all kinds of adventures, and then there's unintentional movement of other people. So you end up with Captain Hook and the Wicked Witch of the West flirting and also scheming. Give it a read.
Ooh, speaking of going into each other's worlds, and then also we had a previous conversation, I think off camera, that you had moved from California to Chicago.
Yep.
But I heard that you were deathly afraid of flying. So how did you get to Chicago?
Valium.
So you actually flew there, though?
I fly a lot nowadays, and I've just found it took a while with me and my doctor working on it. We found that Valium makes me able to fly. I still don't like it, but it makes me not freak out and panic.
Are you completely knocked out, or just
no? I'm just
sedated enough.
I'm just sedated and tired and not really bothered by the plane or anything else. Okay. Like if they said, "Hey, we're going to crash now," I'd be like, "Nah."
Yeah, well, it was.
I had a good run. Yeah.
Ooh, wow. Do you have any idea what caused you to be so afraid of flying?
I have a general anxiety disorder or problem. I've had it my whole life. I didn't have any specific incident with flying that made me afraid. It's just I got more and more anxious, and it was very difficult. All aspects of my life were very difficult. Flying was kind of a focal point where it was actually like I would get so anxious that I couldn't do it, and then not being able to fly was very life limiting. But there are all sorts of other things, other aspects of my life that I just
it shows up.
Yeah, it would come up a lot. Now I'm taking meds that help a lot.
Have you done any meditation or anything like that?
I mean, I tried all that. I tried all that. I went to therapy. I did everything, and finally, what happened was basically, I'm 50 years old, and I've been this way pretty much.
Kid.
Well, what I mean to say is,
I'm 56, man.
Oh yeah.
When I was in high school, you were like you were like in grade school. You were just a punk.
I guess. Well, let's see. When you were a ninth grader, I guess I would have been a third grader.
Yeah. See.
But when you graduated high school, I would have been a sixth grader. Anyway, Grandpa,
yeah.
What I mean to say is I'm 50 years old. So when I was a teenager, when I was growing up, none of these was it SS? Whatever.
SSI blockers or whatever they are.
SSRI. I don't know. None of those medications existed. Prozac hadn't been invented yet. And that was just like the first of a bajillion of them. And so back then, and also people understood depression as an issue later on.
Right.
Like in my high school and college years, people understood that depression was a thing and it could be treated this way.
Right.
But they didn't really understand anxiety. Anxiety was just generally the treatment was your dad telling you to stop being such a pussy.
Yeah, man up, Andy.
Yeah, exactly. And so it took me a long time before I ended up finding the right doctor who said, well, try these antidepressants. And I said, well, I'm not depressed. And she said, it's the same chemicals that cause both problems, or the same lack of them. So just try these. And it worked. It's not a magic solution. I'm still a much more anxious person than the average.
Right.
But I will take this moment to get on my soapbox and say, if you're out there, if you're listening to this, if you have a problem with anxiety, you need to get help. It's the same as if you have a broken leg. You can't just live with it, and you won't be able to fix it yourself. It doesn't even take a lot to deal with. You need to go to a doctor and talk to them, a psychiatrist or psychologist or whatever. see what they can tell you. And then getting the pills is just like, getting a cast on your leg. That's not the end of it. You also need to do the therapy. In the case of your leg, it's physical therapy, but I do therapy every week.
That's great.
And
So do I.
I take my pills every day.
Yeah, well, it's so funny because I've been doing meditation my entire adult life. And for years, I was so on my high horse that I didn't need to do therapy because meditation was way better. Until I almost went crazy and couldn't sleep anymore. And then finally I did therapy out of desperation. I'm like, I'm
glad you got to therapy.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like, saying I don't need therapy because I do meditation is like saying, well, I don't need a doctor for my broken leg because I have essential oils. It's like, you do need a doctor. This person's entire job is dealing with this exact problem. Trust me, they're better at it than you are.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad you got the help you needed. I'm sorry that you went through a tough time.
Well, I don't know. If you're a kind of stubborn person, it's almost like you have to be forced to the brink of, completely losing it before you'll finally change your paradigm, Well,
it was actually flying that led me to that, which was and we're going to get back to the Martian, so this works out well.
Right.
I'd had this, lifelong struggle with anxiety and a crippling fear of flying. At the time, I lived in California, and then The Martian was getting more and more popular. And the movie was, it wasn't out yet. It was in production, but the book was, bestseller list and everything like that. And NASA, NASA called, and they invited me to Johnson Space Center for a week of VIP tours of all sorts of different things.
Cool.
And I'm like, I have got to go to this. I can't not go to this. So I have to get from, San Jose to Houston. And I looked into trains and it was just ridiculously long. And I looked at all these things and I finally said okay, I got to find a way to fly to Houston and back. I got to find a way to make this happen. So I'd already been seeing a normal therapist every week and had been for a while, but I talked to my medical doctor and said I want pills that'll let me fly. I'm not looking for a magic solution. I just give me something that'll knock me out. Just give me anything. Just knock me on my ass. I need to do 2 flights, 1 flight to Houston and 1 flight back. Then I'm done. That's it.
Well, if you talked to Mr. Scott, he would have just gave you one of his best bottles of scotch.
Or transported me there. Or use the transporter.
But look, dude, if you're afraid of flying, there's no way you're going to step on a transporter pad.
Transport is fast. A plane flight, I got to be sitting up there for hours wondering if it's going to remember that large metal objects don't belong in the sky. No, I would do a transporter. Because that way, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die fast.
Okay. And you don't mind getting turned inside out?
No, we didn't get them. And what we did get didn't live very long. It's one of the most ominous lines in any movie ever.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. So I talked to my medical doctor. She referred me to a psychologist and then, the kind that can do meds. And I talked to her and I said, just give me something to knock me out. And she's like, okay, well, I want to ask you some questions about your life. And she dug into my life and everything like that. And she said, okay, you have a problem with general anxiety. Okay. So I'll give you stuff to keep you happy on the plane so that you have that immediate need taken care of. But you need to deal with this chronic problem or your whole life is just going to be limited.
It's going to be...
I'm just going to be uptight all the time. And so it was great because my desire... And I was just looking for a Band-Aid. I wasn't looking for a solution or any sort of treatment for my general anxiety. I didn't really realize that I had such a huge problem with it. I just knew I had a phobia of flying. And so she's like, here's Valium. That'll get you on the plane. Believe me, you will not have a problem. And you can even, and it was more complicated than that, actually. First, I had to do, she gave me various escalating things like, lorazepam, Klonopin, and so on, working my way up. And she would just have me say, here's a prescription for some of this. Take it at home. See how it makes you feel. I took it at home. I'd still be anxious, even though I'm just sitting in my home. I'm like, that didn't work. Finally, with Valium, I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't care about anything right now. Yeah, I could run around in traffic. I wouldn't be worried. Yeah, this will work.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that long-winded and complicated story is just to say that because of The Martian, I got invited to Houston. Because of getting invited to Houston, I was desperate to get on a plane. Because I was desperate to get on a plane, I ending up with a doctor who was like, okay, I'll solve that problem, but we need to address this long-term problem. And that made my life a lot better.
However, if you do get sort of numbed by Valium or whatever, don't you find that you can't be creative in that state?
Well, no, I definitely cannot be creative when I've taken Valium. No, I'm just a mindless zombie, but I don't take it regularly. I take it only to fly.
Okay.
So I'll take Valium a few times a year. That's it.
Okay.
I take it's actually Zoloft is what I take as my
Zoloft,
daily thing. Yeah.
And then it also depends on the dosage and stuff.
Right. Yeah. And then we whittled the dosage up and down until we found the right amount.
That's good.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So back to The Martian.
All right.
So the first thing was just art. We're just going to check the first thing off as just artistic license. We knew it. We wanted to have a tornado.
50 minutes into the interview, we're already to page 2.
Yeah.
Got it. Of The Martian. Got it.
Okay. So then after the fact, another plot point, which isn't nearly as severe, was the whole idea of how to produce water to grow the potatoes. Turns out that there's tons of water ice in Red
Tons
Bull.
of water. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's riddled with it. Yep. However, I can bullshit my way through that by saying, okay, we know that. So the backstory on that for your listeners is that Mark had to do all sorts of stuff to create enough water to grow his potatoes, which was fun because I didn't expect that to be a problem. I was just saying, okay, he'll grow some potatoes. And I'm like, how much water does that take? Well, it doesn't really matter because he's reusing it, right? I mean, potatoes are a life form. They also release water just like we do. It's a cycle. It's a circle of life, right? Mm-hmm. But I looked up like how to grow potatoes and everything like that. And just in some footnote, it said like, oh, the total moisture content of the soil needs to be at least this much or the potato roots will leach the water out and die. And I'm like, well, of course it has to be a certain moisture level in the soil. I'm like, okay, how much water does it take to make that much soil that moist? And you need like hundreds of liters, like way more than they would ever plausibly bring on a Mars mission. So then I'm like, he's going to have to create water. And that led to this whole sequence of cool problem solving and plot points that I never would have thought of if I wasn't doing a deep dive into how to grow potatoes. Anyway, so yes, he does all that stuff. And then later, Curiosity landed, and it took a little scoop of Martian soil and tested the water and said, hey, there's a shitload of water in here. It's absurd. It's like 35 liters of water per cubic meter of Martian soil. I say soil. The correct term is regolith. Right. Fuck everybody. It's dirt. Okay. Anyway, so what's that?
You brought up a new question.
Well, let's get back to that.
I'm going to hold that in my brain while you.
Okay, you hold that in your brain. And then, so if you were to fill your refrigerator with Martian soil and then just extract all the water from that, you would have 35 2-liter bottles of water, 70 liters. And so obviously Mark didn't have to go through such dramatics to get his water. So, however, that is at Sharp Crater, or Mount Sharp, the base of Mount Sharp, which is where Curiosity is. Mark is in Acidalia Planitia, which is like just about the other side of the planet. So I can claim without proof that Acidalia Planitia doesn't have nearly as much water ice in there. And until someone sends a probe, you can't say I'm wrong.
All right, that's a good comeback. I didn't even think of that.
Right.
Okay, so now that we're on Mars, so what's your opinion? Like, what color is Mars? I mean, when we see the pictures and they always talking about color correcting and everything, is it orange? Is it red? Is it just sort of sand colored? Is the sky blue or pink, or what color is it really?
Oh, we've all seen non-color corrected images of it. It's a very pale kind of reddish brown, right? I mean, it's I don't know, not quite the color of the sign, a little bit redder than this sandstone behind me, I think.
Okay.
It's not super deeply red, but it's redder than most dirt that we encounter on Earth because of the huge amount of iron oxide in the
Well,
soil.
you've never been to Hawaii, apparently.
Okay, I have been to Hawaii, but I
Remember how if the lava rock.
okay. Well, I was talking about red dirt.
Yeah.
Not lava, but we've also all encountered like mud that's red, right?
Well, there's this sex. I mean, if you walk down the sidewalk in Hawaii, there's this red dust all over the sidewalk.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
I went once a while ago,
Okay.
so I don't remember.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So I'd say red. Also, the sky is red predominantly during the day, like sunset on Earth, and then
Okay.
when it's sunset, the sky is blue, like day on Earth.
Oh, that's a nice little twist.
Yeah, I'm not sure
Okay.
why. I don't know what causes that to happen. I mean, I know why the sky is predominantly red during the day. It's because of the dust in the air is predominantly
Mhm.
red. I don't know why it becomes blue at night. More Rayleigh scattering. I don't know.
Okay. Now, what's your opinion about us potentially contaminating Mars with Earth life?
I'm a bit of an extremist on that. I think we should not be doing any sort of concerns for contamination whatsoever.
Okay.
Because I have a couple of beliefs here.
Okay.
So first off, I want you to imagine a mental flow chart. Okay. Do you think there's life on Mars at all? Any native life? If no, then there's no need to do, there's no need to do planetary protection for Mars, right? There's no need to keep sterile if Mars has no native life.
Okay.
Correct? So let's say you're concerned that it might. Okay. Next up, you say okay, can anything on Earth survive a vacuum for 8 months?
Yes.
Some tardigrades, kind of.
Apparently, there's a
stuff
lot
like
of
that.
microbes that can.
Okay. Okay. Great. Now, so then, if you don't believe that, then there's no reason to do it. If you do, you're like, okay. Next thing, does Mars have an environment where those things could reproduce, like gather energy, survive, and reproduce, and make copies of themselves? Like all life on Earth requires liquid water, right?
If you go deep enough in the Martian soil, there may be subterranean water.
Well, then how would our stuff get there? Because we've dug pretty deep. Aside from recurring slope lineae, we've never seen anything resembling liquid water anywhere near the surface.
Plus, isn't there? I think there's microbes in Antarctica that do fine just in the ice.
They need liquid water. I guarantee you. I don't know how
Okay.
they do it, but I guarantee you they need liquid water.
Well, we
Okay,
also have.
but then
Hold on now, because we have evidence that there is even now liquid water temporarily streaming down the sides of craters. and so
that's what
on.
I was saying earlier. Recurring slope lineae.
Okay.
RSLs. That's
Oh, yes,
yeah.
RSLs,
It's
of course.
basically it's like really briny, like
Romeo Sierra
perchlorate-
Limas.
It's really briny, like salt water. Although it's not sodium chloride salt, it's other salts. Anyway, so but the question of do we think Earth life could survive on Mars? To which I say, take any of those Antarctic bacteria and put it in 1/100th of an atmosphere, and set the temperature to minus 100 degrees Celsius. See how it does. I don't think it's going to survive. Also, it's sitting on sand, not solid ice, and so on. So anyway, then move
However-
on to the next thing.
No, not yet, because
Okay, so you're not buying it. Fine. Next thing. Because if you don't think they'd survive, then you drop down to we shouldn't decontaminate. We shouldn't worry, right? So, but you are still concerned. So let's move on to the next thing. Do you think the Soviets did that for their Mars probes?
no, that's a very good point.
Okay, so do you believe that there's I skipped a step actually. This Earth life that this theoretical Earth life that could theoretically maybe survive in the natural environment of Mars. Do you think that it would be able to invasively displace native Mars life that has spent the last several billion years evolving specifically to live on Mars?
Okay, that's a very strong argument. That's the whole Andromeda strain counterexample saying it would never happen. Also, there's the panspermia idea where Well, I know.
No, well,
we have
now you start. Let's stay on topic here. You're
Okay.
starting to drift off into panspermia, saying like, oh, maybe Earth seeded life on Mars and so on. Well, that's great.
or
but
Mars.
whatever,
Actually, Mars seeded life on
or
Earth.
Mars seeded life on Earth.
yeah.
But no matter what, it's been several billion years of specializing for this planet.
Okay.
So, and then finally, the thing is, do you think the Soviets did that? And then,
That's the
so of
best
course, the
argument
answer is
right
no.
there.
And then finally, and then the next thing after that is, we don't need, even if all of that was true, even if, and I don't buy that for a second, but even if all of that was a concern, then you
Okay.
get to the end part where it's like, Mars is a planet. Planets are big. We're on one right now. It's big. Okay, it's not as, it's bigger than Mars. Granted, Mars isn't as big as Earth, but
Okay.
planets are huge. So the notion that a single life form could just ruin Mars life, it's like saying, if you're going to get like surgery in a New York City hospital, you don't need all the gas stations in Bangladesh to be clean.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay,
Yeah.
planets are big.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll buy. Also, I think that I didn't even think about the one about the Russians have already contaminated, so it's too late anyways. Which is a strong argument, actually.
Well, I'll tell you which part of those I believe.
Okay.
The first step. I don't think there's any native life on Mars. Hate to be a killjoy, but I just don't think there is. And I'll tell you
Interesting.
why. I believe so. If you were aliens and you came to Earth and you wanted to know if there's any life on this planet,
Mhm.
you could take 1 liter of any part of this planet, just about, of ocean water, dirt in the ground,
Mhm.
air in the sky, from any location on Earth, from the Sahara Desert to the bottom of the ocean to wherever. You take just 1 liter of that, look at it, and you would see it absolutely riddled with life. There'd be microbes everywhere. No matter, there'd be extremophiles. It doesn't matter. No matter where you took it from, it would be just crawling with life. And, and that's not even to mention the macroscopic life. Ignore that. I'm just talking about monocellular life.
Mhm.
Okay, we've gone to Mars. We've looked in lots of different places for any hint of life, and we found absolutely nothing.
Well, the Viking experiment is still up for debate.
I'm not buying it. And it wouldn't be
Okay.
up for debate. I believe that life is so good at filling every ecological niche it can possibly find. It's so, evolution is such an incredibly powerful force that I believe if a planet has any life on it, then it will have life everywhere. That it'll be as inundated with life as Earth is. Maybe you
Okay.
can't get macroscopic multicellular life on Mars because of its ecosphere or because of its biosphere, but it would still have monocellular life everywhere.
So, but don't you think it just, I mean, on the surface of Mars, it's now, there's so much radiation that it's basically sterilizing the whole surface. But don't you think there's a pretty strong case that there could be life, 100 meters down or whatever?
But why hasn't life evolved to take advantage of the whatever resources it needs further up? There's an evolutionary pressure to take advantage of those resources and a tremendous evolutionary pressure to take advantage of sunlight.
Oh, so you think somehow just figured out how to deal with the radiation?
Sure. I mean, after all, your argument revolves around assuming that Earth life is able to survive the extreme irradiation dose of traveling to Mars, and then is also able to deal with Mars's radiation in order to become an invasive life form. So you can't have it both ways. Either
we
radiation
went on a
sterilizes
tangent.
Mars or it doesn't.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a killjoy kind of argument.
But I guess I think the real extreme scientists are like, they don't expect Earth life to completely destroy any life on Mars, but they just don't even like the idea of it even slightly affecting it, because then it'll mess up their experiments, goof up their data,
I understand, but we can't just make Mars a no-fly zone forever. And if you imagine, I guarantee, we all kind of want to see humans walking on Mars someday. When that happens, you can throw that protection concept out the window.
Right.
We are filthy little creatures shedding cells all over the place.
Yeah.
We truly are disgusting.
It's not that far off.
I hope so.
Starship is just
You'll be
about
right.
to launch.
Okay,
Its
cool.
first
Any minute
orbital
now.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I found that I like to daydream and fantasize about all sorts of cool stuff and write it up in books and stuff. But in reality, physics, astronomy, you name it, science always ends up, almost always ends up finding the most boring and uninteresting answer. And so the most likely outcome is that Mars has no native life. I also believe that it is absolutely impossible to travel faster than light or send information faster than light. I just think that that is a physical law that cannot be violated.
But the universe expanded faster than light at the beginning of the Big Bang. Bang.
I don't believe that you can send information faster than light.
I can tell you how to do it.
Like make a new universe and write it.
No, well, you see, you're thinking the way that it can be happen is that you have to, well, it's kind of a religious leap, but if you have all the particles in the universe connected to each other, like is this oneness, like in the egg, or like in the idea of the one electron,
right?
This sense of separateness is really fundamentally it's an illusion. Really, the real reality is oneness, and if everything's one, then everything is in communication with everything else, and so through that oneness, things can communicate faster than light, because the speed of light is simply a speed limit on the vibrations of the physical universe, right? It's a certain, you can't send vibrational energy or information faster than the speed of light, because for some reason that's the limit.
Okay.
That's something to do with space-time or whatever.
You would need to explain then how to use this oneness to communicate.
You could just will, okay, since you are one, you basically transport yourself from one place to another place.
Okay, but I would want to see some experiments that
right. Well, okay.
Someone doing that.
All right, yeah. All right, so I can't. Let's go somewhere else. There is the idea of wormholes, right?
Sure. I still don't believe that. I still firmly believe one way or another, it is not possible for matter or even information to travel faster than light.
So I think that go through a wormhole.
I don't think wormholes in that sense exist, or that you wouldn't be able to send information through them. It's always these theoretical things. Okay. I don't know that anybody's ever made one, no matter how small. And even then, I bet you it would be something like you go into the wormhole, you experience no time, but the outside universe experiences, distance divided by c, and then you come out the other side, or something like that.
Yeah.
There'll be some bullshit that physics pulls to keep you from sending information faster than light.
Okay, let's go there. So why do we have this damn limit anyways? What is it in our physical universe that created this speed limit of the transmission of information?
I don't know. I mean, like, why do we have protons? I don't know. It's difficult to figure out why the physical laws are there. All we can do is observe them and hopefully take advantage of them.
Because the thing is I mean, from a human point of view, the speed of light seems fast, but you just zoom out a bit and it's like glacially
miserably slow.
Yeah.
Miserably slow.
So it's just like to get from the sun to the earth takes 8 minutes.
8 minutes.
Have to sit there and go like this.
Yeah, just
for 8 minutes till it finally gets to here to the earth right over here.
Or 4 years to get to the nearest other star.
Yeah, so
and that's the nearest star. 100,000 years to get to the other side of the galaxy. It's ridiculous.
So
it's absurd.
I mean, if I created the universe, I wouldn't have done
I created the. I'd make it better. Well, I don't know. If you created the universe,
be a good reason.
Although you could go back and say, like, hey, maybe God made it a little easy for us because he made time dilation. You can go to the other side of the galaxy fairly quickly from your point of view.
Right.
That's nice of him.
I was going to talk about that.
Or
next.
her.
Yeah. Okay. So, so we've dealt with the windstorm. We've also managed to skirt around the issue about the water and the regolith. Now we need to get to, can a person really survive on only eating potatoes for a year?
Actually, they can. Although, apologize for the yawn.
I'll let it go. I'll edit it
They
out.
actually can. Potatoes are one of the few things that give you just about everything you need. The one thing you'd be missing out on is some protein, but you can do it. Bear in mind, Mark Watney wasn't existing only on potatoes. He was also was eating vitamins because the crew.
Forget about that.
Yeah, the crew had enough vitamins for all 6 crew members to take for like something like 60 days because it was like double the mission duration because they're light, so they may as well send them more. So he had 60 times 6 is like 360 person days worth of vitamins. And yeah, he was malnourished toward the end of it. But what the potatoes provided him with was the calories. The vitamins balanced his diet. And then there would also be a problem with insufficient protein. And I don't think I don't honestly, it's, I wrote it like almost 14 years ago when I started writing The Martian. But I had it in mind that he actually rationed out his food rations. Like he saved like peas and other high protein items to eat along, whatever. But yeah, potatoes are what potatoes have that is unique is they have the absolute maximum calories per square meter of farmland of any crop. Like, so they are the most space efficient crop in terms of generating calories.
Well, we should be very thankful for Thanksgiving. Otherwise, Mark wouldn't have survived.
Yes, within the context of that, yeah, that they sent him potatoes that could germinate.
Yeah. Now you wouldn't be able to survive a year on McDonald's French fries, though, right?
I don't think so. A lot of the vitamins are in the peel.
Right.
A lot of the essential nutrients that you get from potatoes are in the potato
Though
peel.
with the French fries, you'd get a lot of oils, which actually the fat in the oils might be really useful.
Actually, yeah. I mean, the calories of French fries are pretty high because of all the oils.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd probably feel kind of grungy, but it'd be good calorie-wise.
Okay, we'll have to remember that. Next Martian trip, well, no, you can't grow. Unfortunately, the bad thing about French fries is you can't plant them in the ground and have them spontaneously reproduce.
Have them grow. Yeah, no.
That's the bad. Yeah. That's the downside.
That is a bummer. I think we maybe all tried that as children.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So now we advance into phase 2 of the interview, which would be talking about Artemis, I guess.
Well, I'm going to have to advance to the end of the interview pretty soon because I'm starting to fade. But
right. So what time is it there?
It's 10:15.
Okay. Well, before you completely start.
Well, I give you another 15 minutes or so.
Okay, let's make sure that we plug your new book. So, first off, folks, there's another book besides The Martian, which is called The Artemis, where we go to the moon, and we have a character. I forgot what the character's name was.
Jazz, yeah. Jazz Bashara is a woman who lives on the moon. It's the humanity's first city on the moon. It's called Artemis. Has a permanent population of about maybe 2,000 people, but there's up to 10 or 15,000 people there because it's a tourist town. That's why it exists. It's right next to the Apollo 11 landing site. She is a low-level, she is a porter, actually. She delivers things around town. That's what she does for a living. And on the side, she's a smuggler. She brings in contraband. Mostly contraband comes in the form of like cigarettes, stuff like that. Not because of any ban on tobacco, but because of very, very strict bans on fire. You're not allowed to set things on fire in Artemis because it's an enclosed environment. It's a city and inside of a pressure vessel, a bunch of pressure vessels. Anyway, she ends up caught up in all sorts of nasty plots related to the city and the organized crime elements there and on Earth. And adventure happens, and it's the book everyone forgets even exists. It's completely drowned out by The Martian and Project Hail Mary. So,
Project Hail Mary is that big?
Oh, it's outselling The Martian.
Really? Oh man, I'm so out of it. I didn't even know about it.
Most people don't know that because it's not a movie. So people know movies pretty well, so they've heard of The Martian and stuff like that. But yeah, PHM is selling incredibly well,
Oh,
and
congratulations.
we're making a movie out of it. So
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
great. Is there also an audiobook?
yes, and it's very good.
Okay.
Narrated by Ray Porter. He did an incredible job, and there's a lot of really good. Audible did a really good job on it. They put effort into like special effects and
I
stuff.
was going to say, are there sound effects and music and stuff in it too?
Yep, there are.
Cool.
Especially for the voice of one of the characters. I don't know. Have you read it?
No, I
Project
haven't.
Calvary?
Like I said, I
Okay.
just found out about it
Well-
like a couple days ago.
Okay. Yeah, it's selling very well. I mean,
Great.
we have a film in the works starring Ryan Gosling as the lead, and yeah, there is one character. I don't want to give you any spoilers, but suffice it
Okay.
to say, there is a character in there who has an unusual voice due to a situation, and Audible did a really good job with that, making it sound good.
Since you do voices, did you get to do any of the voices in that?
No. All of the voices were done by Ray Porter. It's not
Cool.
it's not a full cast, but it's just Ray Porter. It's an audiobook.
Okay.
But yeah, the voice of this one particular character had some post processing to make it sound correct for how the book described the voice.
Mhm. Yeah. That's neat. Okay, I'm gonna have to get it and read it. Wow. Okay.
I hope you like it. A lot. I would say the majority of people. This is sort of a biased sample because these are people who email me, but the majority of fan mail I get about it says they like it more than The Martian.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, it's a great trajectory.
Oh,
Although in the
yeah,
middle
so
there
you're
was
not a
Artemis,
one-hit-
and everybody
you're not
forgot
a
that.
one-hit wonder after all.
I'm in two-hit wonder now.
Yeah. So, I mean, Artemis was
Artemis
I thought-
sold very well. It got to number 6 on the New York Times bestseller
that's
list.
good.
But for my books, it's down. It's like, oh, Andy's other book.
Yeah, well, the problem with Artemis, I mean, if we want to be perfectly frank, is that the character Jazz, I didn't buy that character.
A lot of people
I really
didn't.
I didn't really think that she had depth.
Well, I've never been accused of characters with depth,
Okay.
but character depth and complexity is what I consider my biggest weakness as a writer.
Okay.
But I think the biggest issue that is that Jazz wasn't likable.
Mhm.
I was actually trying to go for more depth. She actually is considerably deeper than Mark Watney. Mark Watney has no depth at all. You don't know anything about him at the end of the book other than he's kind of a smart ass, he's resourceful, and he didn't want to die.
I thought Mark Walkman was basically you.
He is.
Okay.
He's absolutely me. But Jazz is also
But you have
me. It's
some
just all
depth,
the
right?
bad. Well, Jazz is also me, but she's like Mark is the idealized me. He's all the parts about myself that I like,
Right.
and then magnified. I'm kind of smart. He's really smart.
Right.
You know, Jazz is all the less desirable aspects of me. Like I was a screw up for most of my life. I didn't live up to my potential. I was very immature for my age, and so on.
When
So
you
I
were a
thought,
kid.
well, also when I was an adult. You know, when I was a young adult.
Okay. Oh, wow.
And so she is also like basically me, but it turns out people like the idealized me more than the flawed real me.
Right. You
And
know
also-
what? Wow. Because
But it was hard to root for her because so many of her problems were caused by her own actions,
yeah.
and she made so many mistakes. I wanted to make her flawed, but I made her so flawed that people just didn't like her very much. And if you're not rooting for the main character, then you're not going to like the book.
Yeah.
So I learned a lesson.
I'll have to read it again because it was a while ago, and for me, it wasn't even that she wasn't likable. Just to me, she just seemed too cardboard. You know, like I'm like, well, Andy Weir doesn't know anything about women at all.
Well, first
Writing
off,
this
that's
character.
well. First off, that is undeniably true.
Okay.
I definitely don't know anything about women at all, but I did actually put an enormous amount of effort into trying to write a realistic woman. Now, bear in mind, she's sort of an unusual person. Like
yeah.
she grew up on the moon, and she has a kind of a weird personality, and she's kind of a criminal and stuff like that. But in terms of just her being a realistic woman, I did the best that I could, which was I wrote the story, and then, you know, I couldn't give it to fans to read because then it'd be up on the Pirate Bay the next day. But I did give it to every woman in my circle of trust.
Oh, okay.
my mother, my wife, my publisher is a guy, my editor was a guy, but his boss, our publisher, was a woman.
Okay.
She read it for me and gave me feedback. The copy editor was a woman, and normally their job is just to correct grammar and spelling, but we specifically asked her, please also comment on, just as you're reading it, if Jazz comes off as a plausible woman. And the ladies who read it gave me feedback, and I incorporated my changes, and I incorporated changes to it. So I did the best that I could. I think a lot of people read it and said, this isn't a realistic woman, whereas in reality, it was just an obnoxious woman that you wouldn't like.
Oh, okay. That's a good counterpoint.
And that's on me. It's my job to make you like the character and want them to succeed. And I didn't do that with Jazz. And, but yeah, I would often get email from readers saying like, you know, oh, Jazz isn't a realistic woman. No woman would ever blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, hold up. There's 3.5 billion women on this planet. I guarantee you any sentence that begins with no woman would is wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I guarantee you there's at least one woman that would, whatever it is.
Yeah.
No woman would ever speak that way. It's like, I know women who speak that way. I remember in The Martian, there was a character, Annie Montrose. She was the press secretary. She was played by Kristen Wiig in the movie. She was the media relations person for NASA. And I had her character be really foul-mouthed in the book. She's like, are you fucking kidding me? What the fucking... Blah, 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 blah. Just swears like a sailor. And she is based on... And in fact, the things that she says, the explicit phrases that she says in the book, the explicit profane phrases that she says are all based on a single woman that I knew in college.
Who really did that.
Who really spoke that way.
So there
she was funny,
folks.
She'd be like, if the real world, I didn't have Annie Montrose say this, but the real world woman, like, she would say like, if she was like mad about something, she'd be like, oh, lick me raw.
Wow.
He was really crude, but you know what? 3.5 billion women on this planet. I guarantee you. It's like people need to understand there's more than one canonical woman on this planet, you know?
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, okay. Truth is stranger than fiction then. I mean, well, sometimes you can, some true stories are so unbelievable that you'd never believe it if it was a story, you know?
But, I mean, is it really that unbelievable? I mean, have you never met a crude woman in your whole life?
Well, my wife she's pretty raw too.
Well, there we go. It's like everybody seems to, I don't know. It's fictional characters are held to a higher standard, and that's okay. And again, I'm not trying to evade my responsibility here.
Right.
I made an unlikable character.
I think what it is now, it's been a while since I read the book, but I think what it is even when a woman is foul-mouthed and tough and mean and bitchy, still there's kind of this underlying female wisdom sensitivity that is still there, right?
I mean,
and I didn't pick that up with Jazz. Like that wasn't, I didn't get that from her.
Well, I'm not, I mean, maybe that's kind of what you want to have be there. Maybe it isn't always there. But again, if I'm going to make a character that people like, you know, the character has to be likable, and I did not succeed in that.
Yeah.
But the thing that does irk me is when people say like, "Oh, Andy Weir doesn't know how to write women. He made his main character a slut." I'm like, no, I didn't. It's like everybody said. There's a lot of people who say like, "Oh, Jazz is a slut. It's just a male fantasy character." I'm like, Jazz doesn't have sex with anybody in the whole book. She doesn't do anything.
That's a good point.
She doesn't have sex or do anything sexual at all in the book.
Interesting.
She's not shy about making crude sex-related jokes and stuff like that.
Okay.
Like the most sexual thing she does in the entire book is at the very end, she kisses a guy. Boo!
That proves that it was a sixth grader. That she was a sixth grader.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Actually, nowadays it's more like a third grader.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, you've been raked through the coals enough on that character, right?
I have, but it's important because that's how I learn, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I gave it my best shot. I learned some stuff, and my next main character, You haven't read him, but is much more likable,
Yeah.
but also flawed.
Plus, I remember you said that, I mean, you knew that you didn't really know how to write a female character, but you wanted to do the challenge. So, I mean, so that was a courageous act.
Right.
Just to even try.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's courageous, but I wanted to try. I have a pretty strong female character in Project Hail Mary.
Okay.
And most
That's
people
the name.
seem to like her. Well, no, she's...
Oh, her name isn't Mary?
Her name isn't Mary. The main character is not a woman. The primary protagonist is a man named Rylan Grace. But I would say she's the arguably second or third most important character in the book.
Okay.
Is a lady named Ava Stratt. And she is...
Named after an electric guitar?
Yep, maybe. I don't know. No, I mean it's STRATT, I think, or AAT. I forget which. But anyway, yeah, she's. But she was a fun character to write. That was for sure. As she's very, very much no bullshit, and so it's fun to write a character who is just like absolutely no bullshit, blunt. But at the same, and also not taking bullshit. Anyway, you'll see her if you read it.
So she's who's the CEO of SpaceX?
Elon Musk?
No, the CEO, the blonde lady.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know her name.
Because she, I think, is like that.
Okay, maybe. Yeah. I mean, I've certainly met ladies who are like Strat.
Yeah.
But Strat's even more fun because she has an unbelievable amount of authority within in the world. You'll see when.
So we'll have to have Sigourney Weaver play her character.
I would like. Well, we haven't cast for Strat yet. All we have is we have Ryan Gosling playing the main character. But Strat, I would love to see Tilda Swinton. Would be cool. Helen Mirren. That would be awesome. She'd do great. Yeah, something like that would be cool.
Are you actually there during the auditions?
There's no auditions at this point. I mean, it's like Ryan Gosling's attached. You know, you don't audition like
you just go out and ask them if you can do it.
Yeah, ask them if they'll do it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you chase them; they don't chase you. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Do you know? Have any idea when the movie's coming out?
I mean, if it gets made at all, you never know with Hollywood, but it'd probably be 2025.
Or could it be potentially a streaming miniseries?
No, it definitely won't be a miniseries. It's definitely a film.
Okay.
I mean, we've got the screenplay and everything written and so on.
Okay, we're getting yawned, so it's almost time to.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So
it's late here where I am.
How long did it take you to write that book?
Project Hail Mary took me about a year to write the first draft, then like 2 or 3 months of back and forth with my editor, refining it, cleaning it up, making it nice, and then it just languished for 14 months.
Wow.
Well, not languished, but I was done. We were complete and locked down. Had finished all the text. There were going to be no more changes, and then it was 14 months later that it hit the shelves.
What
a large part of that, COVID.
Oh, okay.
COVID ate up a lot of it.
Okay. So. And you got anything else in the works now after this?
I do now, but I'm just getting started. Like I'm just at the beginnings of it. I took about, I don't know, a year and a half off because my wife and I had a baby.
Congratulations.
So thank you. Yes, I'm a 50-year-old man with a 1-year-old son. Oh, this is a young person's game, let me tell you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, no wonder you're tired. Yeah. Okay. So, oh shoot, I had another one in there. Do you ever find yourself longing for doing some more computer programming?
You know, it's funny. I really liked my job before I left to become a full-time author, and like I stayed there for quite a while, even after the Martian was popular. It was once I had a contract to write Artemis that I had to leave, so that because I had to spend all day working on Artemis, which is fun also. But I miss the camaraderie of being part of an engineering group.
Okay.
I miss being part of a team of people all working, taking different parts of something, and putting it together. Now you could argue that as a writer, I am part of a team because there's me, my editor, the publisher, the publicity and marketing. Yeah, that's true. But to be part of a team of people who are all involved in the direct creation of something, it's like as an engineer, you talk to your teammates every day, like many times a day. Okay, I'm doing this to this part of the code, or what are you up to? You're doing that. Okay, well, I got to fix this bug. You're just working together. And I miss that because writing is a very solitary activity.
What language did you write in?
A lot of things, but Java, C, C++, and then C#, and there's a lot of languages that,
Okay, I don't want to start another 3-hour discussion, but
exactly, yeah.
Did you ever do assembly?
I did back in the day. I did, now we're going way back to the 80s.
Yeah.
And so, but I did 60x86 assembly.
Okay, 10-second answer. So do you think Java and all these object-oriented languages have achieved what they wanted to, or do you think it just created even worse of a problem?
I don't know what they wanted to achieve, but I think they're great. I love object-oriented programming.
Okay. Because, I mean, I know a little bit of programming. I've heard people say, well, it failed because now you have to, whenever you use some Java object with all this multi-threading, you have to know every single little weird thing that it might do. And basically you have to know everything about the object, when the point was you were supposed to be able to just plug stuff into object and have stuff come out and not have to worry about all that stuff.
Oh, that's true. But that's the case with libraries in non-object-oriented programming also.
You mean like DLLs and stuff?
Well, I mean, that's an example of a library, or just a code library. Like somebody wrote a function to give you the inverse of a matrix. It should be like a black box. You give it your matrix, it gives you back the inverse. You shouldn't have to worry about what it does. But sometimes you do, because it turns out, there's some edge cases that it didn't account for. And then you end up having to know what's going on in there. So objects that are written well, are truly... You don't have to worry about what's going on in them. Just the same as a matrix inverse function, you don't have to worry about what's going on in there. You briefly mentioned multi-threading. Well, multi-threading is a complicated
worms.
Well, it is, but that's why most code will tell you if it's thread safe, which means or they'll say it's reentrant, which means that it's safe to call this function while another thread is already calling this function. That's a whole can of worms. But yeah, multi-threading. If you're using an objects and code that was not written to be thread safe in a multi-threaded environment, then A, you do need to know what's going on inside, and B, that's kind of your fault. It's kind of trying to sail down the Mississippi in a Cadillac. It's like, all right, you're not using this for what it was made for, so you can't blame Ford.
Well, then you have to trust that whoever created that object properly documented everything about it.
Right. But even then, it's not the creator's job to document uses that they never imagined.
Okay. All right. I promise we're wrapping this up, but have you... you know what GPT is, right? Have you gone to GPT and said, write a novel in the style of Andy Weir about a character trapped on a spaceship orbiting a moon of Jupiter?
No, I haven't done that, but I have given it writing prompts. Like, write a story about this, or write something like that. And the stories it writes aren't very good. So for now, my job is secure. We'll see what happens in another year or two, but for now, I'm all right.
I tried arguing with it,
and
I noticed that it basically just kept spitting back the same argument over and over again. Once I drilled into it, it couldn't go past. Basically, what I found out is it just figures out what the consensus on the internet is on a certain topic, and that's about all it can really imitate. After that, it's can't do much. So.
Right. Yeah. Although it was cool, I needed some code from it for a personal project I was doing, and I just didn't want to do. I was lazy, and I was like, I don't want to write this code. It's just tedious. I'm like, maybe Chat GPT. I'm like,
Apparently it can.
right, and it did. It did great. And I was
And
like,
it's
well,
not
that's
garbage.
fantastic. No, it's good.
There were
Solid code.
we've had code producing stuff for a while now, and it used to be when you look at it, it was complete garbage.
But ChatGPT actually makes
Yeah,
legible code, and even with comments and stuff.
yeah. So that's cool.
Yep.
Okay, we're wrapping up. So, okay, now let's go. Can we just for 45 seconds talk about AI? Like what I say is AI is not artificial intelligence. It's imitation intelligence, because it's pure logic. It's basically a bunch of dominoes that are super complex, that are up or down, but there's no actual awareness or consciousness in it, and therefore it will never achieve what a human being can do.
How are your neurons any different?
The neurons are just the structure, but the neurons are not what create my sense of awareness. I have an innate awareness of that my ability to perceive.
I think you just have more dominoes.
No, it doesn't take complexity to be aware.
I think you just have enough dominoes arranged properly to feel aware. But this is another one of those philosophical.
This is a 5-hour conversation. It's a little late to start on. We could do a different interview for that one.
It's like, as a Star Trek fan, you'll appreciate this. Sometimes when I hear people talking about the transporter, it always starts with like, hey, wait, does the transporter use local atoms to make you, or does it actually send the original atoms that were part of your body? And it always starts like that. And I'm always like, let me just cut you off there. All discussions of how Star Trek transporters work eventually lead to what is the human soul. So you could just skip all the intervening steps and go straight to that.
Isn't that, and that's also the ship of Theseus.
Exactly. Well, that's the ship of Theseus argument is on the way from how does transporters work to what is consciousness,
Well, am I looking at Andy Weir, or am I looking at an illusion of Andy Weir right now?
Well, it's an illusion because I'm not actually there. It's on your monitor.
But I believe it.
You don't believe that I'm actually there?
But I feel there's a connection between me.
Oh, I see. I was saying pixels are turning off on your monitor. That's not Andy Weir.
But that's the same
but
thing
you mean
as saying
that there is me here.
It's the same thing as saying, well, that's just pixels turning off on the back of your retinas in your eyes.
Right. Yeah. That's
same
true.
thing.
Yep. Yeah.
Speaking of retinas and pixels, it's time to get some shut eye.
Yeah. My retinal pixels are starting to fade.
Yeah.
Okay, that would mean I'm going blind. That's not right.
So I'm going to put links. We'll put links to all your stuff here. Your website.
I don't have a lot of stuff. I've got my AndyWeirAuthor.com. On Facebook, I'm at Andy Weir. I'm just Andy Weir on Facebook. And on Twitter, I'm at Andy Weir Author. I maintain my social media presence because, there they are. I maintain my social media presence because my publisher told me to.
You have to. You have to be on social media. Everyone is, and you are part of the set of everyone.
I'm not super active on it. But so what I mostly do is sometimes I post random science musings.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. That's really great
Thanks
news.
so much.
I really thought Martian would be your big thing forever, but now you got a book that's even bigger. Wow.
We'll see. We'll see if it surpasses The Martian, but it's really selling very well, and I think if that movie gets made, it'll surpass it.
That's really excellent.
I hope you get time to read it, and I hope you enjoy it.
I will. Okay, so
and if you do, drop me a line.
So you're not afraid of flying anymore. So that means you potentially could take a ride in Starship. Like you could go to the moon.
I could, but I wouldn't. I'm an earthbound misfit. I don't want to leave this planet. I'm not. I can take Valium to not be afraid of flying, but I'm still just on logical grounds don't want to go into space. Space genuinely is dangerous. Flying is the safest form of travel. Space travel is very dangerous.
You're a parent with a young child,
and I have a baby.
You're a totally different mind. But I mean, once your kid grows up, so let's see, when you're 70,
I'm going to be honest with you. Even before we had the baby, I would still not have been willing to go into space.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not a risk taker. Sorry, I know. In real life, I'm way more boring than my characters or stories, and the scientific beliefs I have are way less interesting than the things that I wish were true.
Okay. But there's still time. I mean, you never know. I mean, we go beyond.
I don't have to change my belief system. I just need to suspend my disbelief long enough to write a cool book.
Okay. All right. On that note, let us live long and prosper.
May the force be with you.
Oh, wait a sec. Oh, do you know the other joke? Do you know the Orville one, Jaloja, long and prosper?
Jaloja.
That's an Andy Weir one. You should keep that in your repertoire.
By Grepthar's hammer, I will avenge thee.
By Grepthar's hammer, I shall Jaloja for all eternity.
May the Star Wars be. Yeah.
All right. So thank you, Andy. I really appreciate you doing this. We will meet again on the internet or something, maybe at some con. I'll seek you out.
Hey, drop me a line if you read Project Hail Mary. Tell me what you think.
Okay. I certainly will.
All right.
All right. Take care, sir. Sweet dreams.
Thank you.
And may God
Bye-bye.
be with you.
Pranakasha production. Fantastic creations emerging spontaneously from the space of life.
For the benefit of all beings everywhere.
We gotta change.